Hey everybody, in today's video we're going to be talking about this cute and simple chicken tractor I was able to build. This is a one-person build. I built it completely by myself, no help needed. Before we get into it, we're going to just go over a basic overview of the features. So this chicken tractor, it is roughly 10 foot deep and 8 foot 4 inches wide. It's covered in hardwood cloth for predator proofing, and it's made completely out of wood. There's no special tools needed, just your basic woodworking stuff is all you need. And as we go inside, we can see it's nice and spacious in here. The birds are able to get sunlight, which was really important to me, but there's also this covered area here that we can open up and get inside in case we have to catch anybody. And there you can see are the roosts, which can be configured however you want. But the best part about it is this is bottomless. So there is no cleaning, no poop scooping. The poop just falls down, and as you move the tractor to its new spot, you don't have to worry about cleaning up anything, which was very important for me as I was trying to design a coop that would work for us. And we've got the 2 latches here to keep predators out. About once a week we move our tractors, and I'm able to do it myself. This design does not have wheels. We weren't able to do that because we have raccoons and they'd reach under and kill everything. But I'm able to pull it. I won't say it's easy, but it is definitely doable as a small framed woman. But if push comes to shove, you can always just hook it up to a truck or a tractor. So this coop, it's currently empty, but just to show you guys the size comparison so you can see with a actual chicken inside, I put one of my splash lace red Wyandotte hens in there. And she's a pretty big girl, but this shows you the space that you got in there for having an actual chicken in there. Okay guys, we're gonna get right into it. The first thing we're gonna start with is the base. And this is the only part where I use treated wood. The rest of it we're just going to paint to make it last a little bit longer. But since this part's gonna be touching the ground, we're gonna use treated wood. I try not to use too much treated wood though, because it is heavy and I have the upper body strength of a toddler and I wanna be able to move these myself. So this is the only treated part we're using. What we've got is 2 2x4x10s. Those are gonna be the depth. And then 3 2x4x8s, and those are gonna be for the width. And for both of the 10-foot long depth pieces, I did cut them at an angle since I'm gonna be dragging this across the ground. I thought it might make it a little bit easier to drag across holes and stuff if it's kind of like a sled. So that way it doesn't get caught on a sharp 90-degree angle. I don't know if that's necessary or not, but that's what I did. So let's go ahead and get this all screwed together. And before we get into it, guys, since this is the internet, I should probably start with a disclaimer. It might shock you to know that I am not, in fact, Bob Vila, and nursing school did not include any classes on carpentry. So I am a beginner. However, this is my second one of these that I've built. My first one, we've had Muscovy ducks in it for about a month now, and I'm really happy with it. It's really sturdy, and it does exactly what I need it to do. So we're gonna build several more just like it. This is 2 of probably 4 that I'm gonna be building here. But really, I'm making this video because I see on social media there's a lot of single women who are homesteading, and I see a lot of people considering buying pre-made chicken coops, and those run for like $5,000, guys. It's so expensive. So essentially the moral of this story is gonna be, if I can do it, anybody can do it, guys. So if you're a single lady and you don't wanna spend tons amount of money on a pre-built coop that has to be delivered to you, you can definitely build your own. In total, this cost me a little under $600, I believe. That doesn't include the hardware cloth though, because the hardware cloth I've been gathering, I've been buying it on clearance for the past 1.5 years because I knew I was gonna have to be building these. So about $600 plus the cost of hardware cloth is what you're looking at here. So way cheaper than $5,000 that you might have to spend if you go to one of those mini shed places. So the layout of this, we're gonna have 5 feet of run and then 4 foot of covered coop area. And it's all gonna be 8 foot wide. So I placed my boards. This is 1 foot from this end, 6 foot from the end, and then at the very end there. And this middle board, I did this one a little bit differently. Whenever you're doing stuff on your own, you have to get kind of creative. So I use these as kind of like a shim to hold up that board so that it can be flush with that board there, but it is lifted up off the ground. There's a space here. And I did that because whenever I'm moving this, I don't want any legs getting caught underneath if this was flushed with the ground. I'm afraid I'd be breaking legs whenever I go to move this to new pastures. So that is why that board is there, but it has to be flush with the top because I'm gonna be setting a board right there. And we chose these dimensions because the plywood is 4 foot wide, and that's what we're gonna put over the coop. And we're doing 5 foot for the run because this was the hardware cloth I was able to find on clearance. It's 5 foot long sections. If you've ever worked with hardware cloth, you know that it is the most frustrating material to work with. So the less amount that I have to cut, the better. I'm gonna have to cut this one though. So next we're gonna start on the A-frame. I chose an A-frame just because it should require less materials. Therefore, it should weigh less. So for that, you're going to cut down your studs to 6 foot long. These are just regular 2x4 studs. On one end, you're gonna cut a 43-degree angle, and on the other, you're gonna cut a 47-degree angle. And to do that, to make it a little bit easier, I held them up to where they're supposed to go, and I just very roughly drew a line, roughly how the angle should go. Since they're kind of mirrored on each side, it made sense in my brain that way. I don't screw up my angles. So the 43-degree side is gonna go on the ground, and then the 47 should be up in the air, and both sides are gonna mirror. So this side's gonna have 43, that side's gonna have 43, and then they're both gonna have the 47 side in the middle. Hopefully that makes sense. And I'll show you guys how I'm doing my screws. It's easiest to start the screw on the ground and then finish drilling it when you're holding it up where it's supposed to go. So I have, this one is a 3-inch right down the center, and then into the side, I'm doing a 2.5-inch. And so that's how they come out. If you have a Craig or a pocket jig, you could probably make this look a lot prettier and maybe a little bit sturdier, but this works just fine. This next part, you're going to need a 2x4 that's 10 foot long, cut down to 9 foot, because this is gonna go from the top of your peak from one side clear to the other. If there is a point at any of this where if you have help to utilize it, now would be the time, because this is a super frustrating part, but you can do it by yourself. We're just gonna kind of fumble our way through it. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna screw just one screw on this front part. I'm just gonna kind of prop the rest of it up on the back parts, and we're just gonna finagle it and screw it as best as we can, just with one screw on each part, and then we'll add the rest of the screws once it's right where it needs to be. So now we need some bracing to make it more sturdy this way. So we're gonna put a brace from here to here, and then another one from here to there, and we're gonna do that on both sides. The one here is going to provide a spot for us to screw our hardware cloth in, and then over there, that's going to be another area we can screw in our plywood. All right, we've got our horizontal braces on now. So now we're to the point where we can start working on the coop. And so what we're gonna do is we're gonna put a piece of plywood here, one on the other side, and then we're gonna put one horizontally for the back, and then we'll use scraps to cover the top there. So this is another area where if you have help, it's helpful to have somebody here, but if you are on your own, what I am doing is I put some screws here. They're about half an inch from the top of this board. I put 3 of them along here, and they are going to help me hold my plywood in place so I can mark where I need to cut it, and then whenever I set it, after I cut it, when I set it back up, it'll hold it exactly where it was supposed to be. So we'll go ahead and do that. This is, again, just a really clumsy part of it, but we'll get through it. It's not too bad. This plywood is pretty thin. It was one of the thinner sheets I could find because the thicker plywood is so heavy. But But, you know, we just need a windbreak. Our winters aren't that bad here, so this stuff will work just fine. So on the back side, I've marked my line where I need to cut that top off. But what's most important right here is that I finagle it to where we have a lip, because right along here is where we're going to be attaching the hardware cloth. So we have to have, you know, an inch at least of area there. And it's okay if you end up with a little bit of an overhang, which is what we have here, maybe 3/4 of an inch. It's no big deal, so we'll just cut it. Update. I can't tell if this chicken is very brave or very stupid because I'm literally using the circular saw like 5 feet away from where he's just checking out the old play yard. All right, guys, so we've got the 3 walls of the coop part done and the frame for the run done. It is about 3 p.m. now, and I started about 11:30. So this is what all we've been able to accomplish so far. I still need to add the top part back there to the back. But the only thing I did ahead of time was cut these A-frame pieces. Otherwise, everything else we've done in those 3.5 hours. So this is coming along pretty quick. Here I'm taking one of those scrap pieces of plywood and I'm filling in that little gap that's left at the back top of the coop area. Before I go in closing any more of this, I almost forgot I have these little corner like braces made out of metal. I'm gonna put these on the inside of all 4 corners just to provide a little bit more stability and a little more strength because that's where all of the weight, whenever I'm pulling this, that's where all the weight is gonna go to. So this is just gonna provide a little bit more strength. Okay, up next we're gonna take, this is one of the scrap pieces from where we cut this backboard here. We're gonna take that and we're gonna create a door right here. And that's gonna provide them with a wind block, but it is going to be on a hinge so that whenever it comes time for me to have to catch a chicken or, you know, care for them some way, I'm able to open that up so I don't have to like crawl underneath or anything. Got our little hook and eye enclosure here for our door, which rubs a little bit, but that's right, we'll sand that down. All right, and then this is one of the tops of the plywood that we cut off, and what I'm gonna use this for is just to create another wall over, let's see, right there and right there, just to make it a little bit warmer in the winter time and give them a little bit more of like a hiding spot. So for making this side and that side just now, we have this like 2x2 square. What we're gonna use for this is, it is going to be used to cover the top here, above the door frame. We're gonna wanna cover that up. Well, you don't have to, but that's what I like to do. So that's what that's gonna be used for, so we're gonna save that. We still have this big top, so this is gonna be, what, 2x4. And then we have this big triangle left from the back. So quite a bit of plywood waste. One thing you can do with it is you could go ahead and build nesting boxes now. There's definitely enough wood here to make a couple nesting boxes. Another thing you could do if you guys have really bad winters, you can make the walls a little bit longer. Welcome back. We are on day 2 of our chicken coop build. You'll notice the coop looks a little bit different. We had what I thought was going to be our last couple warm days of fall. So I went ahead and I put 2 coats of paint on the outside to get that knocked out. But in typical Indiana weather fashion, it went from 90 to 50 like it saw a state trooper. And now we're back up to the 80s today. So luckily the weather is cooperating with us and we're going to hopefully get this guy finished today. So the first thing we're gonna do is create our frame for the door. If you are curious about the paint that I used, this is Valspar Stormcoat in the color Elegant Silk. It's like a nice turquoisey color. And for these projects, I like to use exterior semi-gloss. The higher the gloss, the less porous the paint is gonna be, so it should theoretically last a little bit longer. But I don't want it to be so glossy that it's like a beacon from space. So I just do semi-gloss, and it turned out really good. So for the frame, I'm essentially just gonna eyeball it. I've got a level here, and this is a scrap piece of wood from one of the ends that we cut off. I'm just gonna hold it up here, hold it level, you can see, and then I'm just gonna mark where the angles need to be. So I've got my angles here. So I'm gonna go cut those in the miter saw. Okay, I've got my board cut and prepped with a screw on either side. We're gonna go ahead and pop this in. And then for either side of the frame, what we're gonna do is essentially the same thing. Take the level, put it right on either side, and we're still using scrap pieces of wood for this. Okay, so the frame is done. So now we have to make the actual door, and the door I'm gonna make slightly smaller than the frame. And I'm gonna try to use as much of the scrap leftover wood as we can. Okay, so here's how we got the door so far. My measurements ended up being, these pieces were 26.5 and these were 33. But of course yours is gonna vary depending on where you put the positioning of your frame and how you want the door. And this is how we're doing the screws. If you had a Craig jig, this would look a lot nicer, but this works. That's just the redneck way of doing it. What I'm doing is I'm screwing the screw down and then I'm pushing them to the like 45-degree angle that I want them to be. And I'm gonna do that for all these joints. And then we have these little scrap triangles. I'm gonna put them in each corner just to provide a little bit extra stability and keep it from warping too bad. So let's do that. All right, guys, so we just finished the door and I just painted it, so we're waiting on the paint to dry. So while we're waiting on that, we are going to start on the hardware cloth, which is honestly probably the most tedious part of this build. But we're going to start on the side here. And the way that we're going to attach the hardware cloth is with screws with washers. And the way that I found the hardware cloth to be easiest to manage was to start on one side, loosely screw in both corners, roll the hardware cloth over to the other side so you know that it can reach, and then loosely screw in both those corners as well. And then you can start doing your actual, every 6-inch screwing from one side clear to the other. And I spaced them about 6 inches apart. You could do closer if you've got big predators, but I think that should cover us. And we did put the hardware cloth on the outside. It would look prettier if it was on the inside, guys, but it's not as predator proof. It's easier to push through if it's on the inside. So that's why we did it that way, but you do it however you want. And up next is attaching the door. This was another area where I had to finagle a lot. I cut most of that out just because it was so redundant, but I started by attaching the hinges to the frame and then I attached the door to the other hinge. So that's how I did it. I used the level throughout just to make sure it wasn't too wonky, but it turned out pretty good. All right, so we've got the door on. Let's see how the hinges are there. It's a little bit shifted too far to the left, but it's all right. And you can kind of see how that board back there is a little bit crooked, but just a chicken house, guys, just a chicken house. Okay, so the next thing I want to do, this area up here, you can either cover this with chicken wire, but what I prefer to do since we have so much extra plywood is I'm going to cover it and paint it as well. So we're just going to take this extra piece here and we're going to cut it to size so that it fits that spot there. Okay, now on the door, we've got two different types of latches we're going to put on. I like to put a latch on the bottom too, just to keep something from wedging in underneath the bottom of the door and getting in that way. And then I like the big action bolt for the top as the main latch. So we've got some scrap wood here that I've already painted, and we're going to attach those so that the latch has something to attach to, since the door sticks out further than the frame. And then I've got this piece, which is still, paint is still drying on it. It's gonna go up here for that other latch. Okay, I want this to be just barely above the door, so I have this little sprig of wood here to use as kind of a guide to keep this just a little bit up off the door so it's not rubbing. And I'm just gonna try to line it up as best as I can and get it screwed in. And then for this last part, I'm gonna do the exact same thing, figure out exactly where it's gonna go, mark my holes, and these are big pieces of wood, so I'm not worried about them splitting now, so I'm just going to screw those right in. I bought a handle for this. My other one, I don't have a handle on it, and I don't need one. I open it and I just pull it open like this. So I don't think a handle is necessary, but I mean, it would look cute. It would add to the look to it, but probably not gonna put this on. Handle is optional, I would say. Okay, so my roosts are drying, so we'll show them next. But while we're waiting on that, we're gonna go ahead and attach these cargo anchors. This is a 1/2-inch cargo D-ring anchor. These I bought at Harbor Freight. They were super cheap. And we're gonna use this because whenever I move these, I attach a tow rope, like what you use for a car. I also bought that at Harbor Freight. So we're gonna attach these to the front. And you also have to buy nuts and bolts to attach them. So we've got those. So let's go ahead and get them attached. So the anchors are gonna go right here on these little pieces that stick out on the front of the coop. Okay, so these hooks are gonna go roughly in the middle here. And we just wanna make sure it's not dragging on the ground. And that looks pretty good. So I'm just gonna mark where my holes have to be. And got my drill. I'm just gonna drill 2 holes in those spots. I'll try to make them as straight as possible, but I suck at drilling, so we'll see how this goes. All right, guys, it is getting dark. Hopefully you can see, but the last thing we need to do is just create our roosts. The nice thing about DIYs is you can configure your roosts however you want. If you have really heavyweight breeds, you can put them down lower. If you have lots of birds in here, you can stack them clear up to the very tippy top. So I decided for my birds, I wanted to just have 2 in the middle. That should be plenty for the number of birds that I'm gonna be having in here. And for me personally, I like to have my roosts be easily removable. I don't want to have my drill or anything to pop these out so I can rinse them off. So what I did is I take screws and I kind of make a little bracket that it fits in. It can't be whenever I push on it. It doesn't fall off easily, but I can just pop this off, rinse it off, and put it back on anytime it needs cleaned. And I did that for both sides. And these roosts, they are a different color. I had enough paint left over, I could have painted them, but I am running short on time. I'm running out of daylight, so I decided to actually spray paint these with just some leftover spray paint I had. But if you buy a gallon of the paint, that should be plenty for you to do the roosts as well. All right, guys, that is it. And that is it, guys. The tractor is done. And as you can see, I think the chicken likes it. She could have ran out to free range and she's choosing to go back inside. So I'd say it is chicken approved. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up. It's a free way to help my channel out. If you want to see more videos like this, be sure to subscribe and we will see you in the next one. Bye.